Now, I'm the first to admit that I don't have a whole lot of experience with automatic transmissions in big trucks. But I have been driving one briefly this winter, and I'll tell you a few things that I've noticed right away. The first thing I've noticed, and something that I don't like, is when I'm starting down a really steep hill with a stop sign, for instance, at the bottom, and the hill is covered with snow and a little bit slippery, that the truck has a tendency to want to push itself down the hill a little more quickly than I'm comfortable with. When I would, in a standard transmission truck, when I would pick second gear, the automatic transmission seems to pick third, and I find that uncomfortable. I feel like the truck is pushing me more quickly than I want to descend, and when I touch the brakes gently, the thing starts to get out of shape a little because that pushing from the automatic transmission continues. Now, I found that the way to defeat this was to kind of slip it into neutral, but that's an uncomfortable feeling for me because I'm used to going down a hill with the transmission and the Jake holding me back. The automatic transmission to me did not feel comfortable walking down in neutral. Now, I guess the other thing you can do is change modes so you can shift it manually yourself. But I found that I was spending a lot of the time looking at the dash to figure out what gear I was in rather than looking ahead where I wanted to be looking out the windshield to see where I was going. So I didn't like that about the automatic transmissions. They seem to want to push you down the hill when you're trying to get it stopped. The second thing that I found that I didn't like was I was used to being able to ease the truck into gear using the clutch. So if the roads were slippery, if I was coming out of a stop or something like that, or in a parking lot, I could feather the clutch out to kind of gradually ease the truck into gear, and she would walk out of the snow a little more easily than this automatic transmission. When you put it into D and you take your foot off the brake, it just starts to walk. And the tendency was in snow or slippery ground, the thing would just wipe its feet, and all of a sudden you've lost traction already. Now, something else too is when you're in a rut that you've carved from the drives, you can rock a standard transmission back and forth. So you could feather the clutch in and out, get the truck rocking enough to get yourself out of the hole. With the automatic transmission, yeah, you could rock the truck, but you'd lose momentum because you'd have to put it in reverse, back it up, hit the brake, put it in drive, let it go forward, and then at the top of the rise, hit the brake again, and you kept losing your momentum this way. You could rock it, but not nearly as effectively. So I didn't care for that much either. And now I have to tell you that the truck I've been driving has about the best Michelin drive tires for the winter that money can buy. So it wasn't a problem with the tires. It's the automatic transmission that's changing the characteristics of how the truck works in snow. Now, I've read that over 90% of the new trucks being ordered by companies for highway use are being spec'd with automatic transmissions. And you know, while automatics may be great on the highway, we all know that sooner or later, highway trucks need to be able to work in snow. Sometimes the snow is packed up in the truck stop parking lots, or you'll get off to the shoulder of the road and need to get going again. No matter how hard you try, there are times when highway trucks will find that they're in deep snow and they need to be able to get out of the deep snow and back onto the roads again. And I found that the automatic transmissions were a little more ineffective at being able to get themselves out of deeper snow and off slippery ground. Now, I understand why automatic transmissions are becoming the way of the future. And honestly, the reason is because company owners can't find experienced drivers anymore. So they're having to teach new drivers and take drivers fresh out of driving school, and that's one less thing for them to have to teach them, and one less thing for these new guys to have to learn is to how to shift a manual transmission. So I understand why we're going to automatic transmissions in this industry. They're more expensive and they're a brutal thing to have to repair and fix. But I understand the logic behind it. But here's a lesson too for the experienced guys after all of this. They're going to automatic transmissions because they can't find guys to drive standards. And if you come across a fleet that still has standards, and you'll always come across a fleet that's looking for experienced guys, here's your bonus. Here's the added value onto your license, because that shows that you have more experience than the average guy coming into the market these days. And the fact that you have more experience should mean more money in your pocket from the carrier. I was well used to hauling tankers through the mountains in the wintertime, and traction's always an issue with anything in the mountains in the wintertime. But I had hauled primarily fuel tankers in my years of hauling in the mountains. Now, a few years ago, I went to chemical tankers or straight bore tankers. So what that means is there's no baffle in the trailer. So the whole product runs up the full length and down the full length of the tanker. And I was on my way into Portland in the wintertime. I had a 7,000 gallon chemical trailer, but only about 4,500 gallons worth of product on this trailer. So there was room for slop and movement throughout the whole trailer. And what I hadn't counted on, but what I learned, was that when I was going up steep grades, all the product would run to the back of the trailer and my drives would lose traction because there was less weight on them. And man, that's a discouraging thing when you're trying to scratch your way to the top of the hill. All of a sudden to lose half your traction because the weight has gone to the back of the trailer. Very disconcerting. Then when you're starting downhill again, all the product runs to the front of the truck, to the front of the trailer, takes weight off the trailer axles, and makes the trailer susceptible to coming around because the weight's no longer evenly distributed. All your weight's on your drives and the back end's light. So, and just when you want the back end heavier for braking power, now it's run to the front. So here's a lesson that I learned, both with the tankers in the hills and with these automatic transmissions. Drivers rarely take the time to chain up the trailer axles and use them as drag chains, but both with automatics and with these chemical tankers, I became a student of having to chain up an axle for drag when I was coming down the hills. And it's a good way to prevent the thing getting out of shape and doing a downhill jackknife. That's my lesson for the day. Take care, drivers, keep the rubber side down, and I'll see you on the backhaul.